So many other plays where it felt like Asia was bullying other players on the Fever. And I want you to watch this play here with Lexi Hall. She's standing her ground. She's trying to down screen, and Asia just chucks her to the ground. Now, there was no whistle there, and you can ref number 16 right there. He's watching the whole thing happen. No whistle. They just kind of let it go.
Picture this. The clock's running down, the arena's shaking with noise. And in the middle of it all, one of the league's biggest stars, the reigning MVP, squares up against a smaller defender. In a single, forceful motion, she shoves her opponent to the floor. The referee stands just a few feet away, eyes locked on the play. No whistle, no foul. Play continues. Freeze that image. The MVP towering above, the smaller player stunned on the hardwood, disbelief written all over her face. It's the kind of moment that makes you question what fairness in sports really means. Now here's the twist. After the game, that same MVP sits at the press table and calmly claims her team was the one victimized by a special whistle, suggesting the referees favored the other side. Imagine hearing that after witnessing her deliver an uncalled shove that sent a defender flying. That's not just ironic, it's infuriating. And it didn't end there. That shove became more than a single missed call. It ignited a storm. Fans, analysts, and even rival players couldn't stop talking. Suddenly, the special whistle narrative wasn't just talk. It was the heart of a growing controversy that painted the Indiana Fever as the league's most disrespected team. The headlines claimed the Fever didn't beat the defending champs on merit. They were handed the win by biased refs. The proof. A glaring stat. 34 free throws for Indiana. Just 11 for Las Vegas. It spread like wildfire, fueling conspiracy theories overnight. But numbers can deceive. Stats can be twisted, quotes clipped, and one viral soundbite can overshadow the truth. If you've followed this series, you know the real story rarely matches the headlines. That space between perception and reality, that's where things get interesting. Because when you look past the outrage, the memes, and the finger-pointing, the game tape reveals something else entirely. A version of events the Aces likely hoped no one would ever take the time to uncover. We're talking missed calls, unchecked aggression, a fiery social media post from the bench, and even a late-game coaching mistake that turned a close playoff fight into a full-blown collapse. Think you already know what happened in Game 4? Think again. What you're about to hear might flip the entire narrative on its head. The real controversy didn't begin on the hardwood. It started under the glare of the post-game press conference lights. Those tense minutes when frustration peaks and microphones turn into weapons. The Aces had just dropped a must-win Game 4. Their dynasty suddenly teetering. The scoreboard told one story, but the stat sheet screamed another. Indiana Fever, 34 free throw attempts. Las Vegas Aces, just 11. That single, lopsided number ignited a firestorm. To some, it wasn't the result of differing play styles or aggressive defense in the paint. It looked like favoritism. A gift from the officials that robbed the defending champs and handed the underdogs a lifeline. Inside the Aces locker room, disbelief turned into anger. And at the podium, Coach Becky Hammon didn't bother hiding her frustration. Her words would spark the controversy that defined the series. Becky Hammon leaned into the microphone and delivered the line that would dominate every sports headline that night. They shot 34 free throws and we shot 11. Tighter on both ends would have been nice. No mention of missed defensive rotations, no talk of turnovers or adjustments. Just that number, 34-11. In that single moment, she planted the seed of a simple, powerful narrative that any frustrated fan could cling to. We didn't get outplayed. We got robbed. Moments later, the team's MVP doubled down. Standing at the same podium, she added the quote that would echo across social media. I guess she's got a special whistle. She wasn't speaking in generalities or about league officiating. She was talking about her on-court rival, Aaliyah Boston, the rookie center who had just owned the paint and drawn foul after foul. The sarcasm in her tone was sharp. The message was clear. Boston wasn't dominating because of skill. She was being favored. The reaction was instant. Within hours, clips of the free throw disparity flooded social media. Comment sections exploded with accusations of bias. Special whistle trended on Twitter, Reddit, and TikTok. It was catchy, repeatable, and perfectly framed the Fever's win as illegitimate. That's the brilliance and the danger of a clean one-line excuse. It reduces a complex, physical playoff war into a single villain: the referees. It tells angry fans exactly what they want to believe: that their team didn't lose because they were outplayed, but because the game was stolen. But there's a problem with that story. When you slow down the tape and break down every possession, that supposedly damning 34-11 free throw split stops looking like evidence of corruption, and starts looking like the result of two completely different game plans. One team attacked the rim relentlessly, forcing contact and living in the paint. The other settled for contested jumpers, hoping skill would outweigh aggression. That reality never made the headlines. Instead, the special whistle narrative became the perfect smokescreen, blurring out everything that actually decided the game. And here's the kicker. While Vegas was busy fanning the flames of referee blame, Indiana's own star had a far simpler and far more honest explanation for her 13 trips to the line. It wasn't favoritism, it was positioning. And Aaliyah Boston even had a name for the technique that made all the difference. But we'll get to that. To truly understand why the Aces' special whistle excuse collapses, you have to look beyond the box score and into the heart of the Fever's strategy. The way they engineered those fouls, possession after possession. If you only saw the stat sheet, you might think Indiana was handed those 34 free throws as a gift from the refs. But basketball games aren't won on spreadsheets. They're won in the trenches. On the hardwood, in the paint, where contact, timing, and positioning decide everything. Indiana didn't luck into those foul calls. They built them. Every drive, every seal, every post-up was crafted to do one thing: force the Aces into no-win situations. Either give up an easy basket or commit a foul trying to stop it. The foundation of that game plan came from the middle: Aaliyah Boston. All series long, the rookie center had been a nightmare matchup. Too strong to shove off her spot, too smart to double blindly, too quick to ignore. But in Game 4, she added something subtle and devastating: earlier seals. Now, if you're not deep into basketball lingo, that might sound like something you'd use to fix a leaky window. But on the court, it's lethal. Here's how it works. Instead of waiting for the ball to arrive and then wrestling for position, Boston fought for space before the pass was even made. She established herself so deep near the rim that by the time the ball got there, she was already in scoring range. That tiny adjustment flipped the entire matchup. Her defender suddenly had no good options: contest the shot and risk a foul, or back off and give up an uncontested layup. Over and over, Boston's precision and timing forced the Aces into fouls. That's not bias. That's physics, fundamentals, and preparation. And Boston wasn't alone. Indiana's guards followed her lead. They attacked the basket relentlessly, refusing to settle for long twos or fading jumpers. Every possession was an invitation for contact. They absorbed hits, drew whistles, and made Vegas play reactive defense. Each drive collapsed the Aces' coverage a half-second too late, leading to hacks, bumps, and desperate reaches. Meanwhile, the Aces stuck with what had always worked for them: finesse. They leaned on mid-range shots and isolation plays, trusting their MVP to win with touch rather than toughness. But that style doesn't draw fouls. It only works when the shots fall. So when the final buzzer sounded and the scoreboard read 34-11, it wasn't evidence of a conspiracy. It was a reflection of two completely different mindsets. One team willing to take the hits and live at the line. The other trying to stay comfortable and shoot their way out of trouble. And Boston herself summed it up perfectly after the game. Asked how she managed to draw 13 free throws, she didn't blame or credit the officials. She smiled and talked about those early seals, the invisible work that happens before the cameras ever notice. It wasn't favoritism. It was mastery. That's what makes the Aces' special whistle story so easy to shatter. Those fouls weren't gifts. They were earned. The natural outcome of one team dominating the paint while the other tried to avoid it. But here's where it really stings. While the Aces were busy blaming the refs, the game tape was quietly exposing them, showing multiple sequences where they got away with fouls that were never called. That's where the hypocrisy starts to take shape. Up to this point, all the noise had centered around that magic number: 34-11. But anyone who's watched playoff basketball knows a box score only tells half the story. And in this case, it hid the most revealing evidence of all. That Vegas wasn't just the victim. They were part of the problem. Because while they cried foul over Indiana's trips to the line, the footage told another story. Their own physical, uncalled contact that slipped right under the officials' radar. Fever fans had been saying it since Game 1. The Aces weren't being cheated. They were being exposed. The Aces' defense often looked less like a disciplined system and more like an arm wrestling contest. The officials had let that level of contact slide for most of the series. But in Game 4, the double standard everyone had been ignoring finally came into focus. The clearest example came from one viral moment. Late in the second quarter, Indiana's Lexi Hull was setting a simple down screen, a routine off-ball action that happens hundreds of times in a game. She planted her feet, steady and ready to give her teammate a clean lane. Then, out of nowhere, the league's MVP dropped her shoulders, extended both arms, and shoved Hull straight to the hardwood. This wasn't incidental contact or two players fighting for space. It was a deliberate two-handed push that sent the smaller player sprawling. What made it worse was the positioning. The referee, number 16, stood just a few feet away, eyes locked on the play. No whistle, no foul, just silence. The game rolled on. Within minutes, freeze frames of the shove were all over social media. Fans clipped the video, slowed it down, circled the referee in red, and demanded answers. How could something that blatant go uncalled? The clip didn't just fuel outrage. It tore holes in the Aces' entire special whistle narrative. Because if the refs were truly favoring Indiana, how did their MVP get away with one of the most obvious fouls of the postseason? But that shove on Hull was only the beginning. When analysts went back and broke down the footage, a clear pattern emerged. Lingering hand checks, sharp elbows during box-outs, subtle bumps on drives that never drew a whistle. It all told the same story. Las Vegas had been allowed to play an extremely physical brand of defense all series long. That's what made the special whistle complaint ring so hollow. The Game 4 foul disparity wasn't a sudden bias or reversal. It was a long overdue correction. For 3 games, the officials had swallowed the whistle on Vegas's physicality. In Game 4 they finally enforced the rules. The shove on Hull became the smoking gun. The clip fans could point to and say, "See? It's not that Indiana got special treatment. It's that Vegas finally stopped getting theirs." And that realization didn't just stay online. Someone on the Fever bench, a player who had spent the series watching the imbalance unfold from the sidelines, had seen enough. When Game 4 flipped the script, she wasn't about to stay quiet any longer. Her name was